Good evening, everybody. Glad you could be here with us. I'm excited to be here with you with another episode of the Love Again podcast. As always, I'm here, but I'm not here alone. I have a new friend of mine, who's a special guest, and I'm excited that she's here. I've been a fan of her work for a minute, and so I'm really
Oh, thank
glad
you.
that she could be here with us, the one and only Tiffany Hale. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I am doing well. Thank you for having me on the show. Likewise, I have loved following you these last couple months. Enjoy your commentary. Enjoy your sense of humor as well on your personal page.
Yeah.
But thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. I heard that you all finally have warm weather in Chicago.
We do. We have warm weather and we are outside.
I know what that looks like. I know.
You know what that looks like. So yeah, we got warm weather and we're
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah.
All of
Yeah.
us, everybody, we're
Yeah.
outside.
You've been inside for a minute, so it's time to be outside. I totally.
We have been inside, and I definitely have been inside. So I
Mhm.
am thankful and I'm grateful for this warm weather. I really am.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're getting it warmed up. So by the time I get back there, have some warm weather because woof, them Chicago winters. I dodged it this year, so I'm a happy camper. So I'm looking forward to summertime in Chicago.
Are you home for Memorial Day for the
Uh,
holiday?
I should be back by then. That's the plan. I should be back by then. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. People ask me what am I looking forward to it most? Sleeping in my own bed. That's it's the little things, There's just some Portillos and just
Oh, yeah, that
some
sounds
good
good.
pizza. Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. So I'm glad it's going to be warm by the time I get there. But I'm glad you're here, and again, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Um, I always want to start off the conversation with kind of an origin story. Um, I know a little bit about you, but I just kind of want to share. I want you to share, like, if somebody asks you, well, what's your story? What would you say?
Well, my origin story is I am a native of Chicago. I was born and raised here, and I am still here, headquartered here in Chicago. I am from the southwest side of Chicago, a neighborhood, the Hearst Leclerc community. Leclerc Courts is what I represent, and people probably see that all the time because I'm not shy about saying I'm from LC. I am a product of Chicago Public Schools. So I
Okay.
went to Hearst Elementary School on the southwest side in my neighborhood. I went to Curie High School, which is on the southwest side of
Okay.
Chicago. And then I went to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign,
Hmm.
which is, in central Illinois, and came back and got my grad degree at Dominican University. So my education has been here in Illinois my entire life, and I always like to say I'm a product of Chicago public schools. Like good things still come out of public schools.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Leclerc Court, though, that's going to be over near Kedzie, between Kedzie, Pulaski.
Oh
That
no, we're right on Cicero. We're right on. We're not far from Cassie and Pulaski.
Yeah,
My
so
high
you're
school.
further.
Yeah, so we're further west. My high school was on Pulaski, but my
Right, that's what
neighborhood
Curie
is
is.
from Cicero to Laramie, 43rd to 47, and
Ah,
it's the Hearst Leclerc community. Leclerc.
hmm. Well, that's an interesting space to grow up in.
It's a very interesting space. On the news they call it the Midway area. So I mean, grew up right by Midway Airport, and
Hmm.
I mean, great upbringing, great neighborhood, and we all still rep it. We all still love it, and I mean, it's changing. It's changed and it's changing, but it's still our place we call home.
Shout out to the LC.
Shout out to the ALC.
Shout out to the LC. That's awesome. So in our what we always talk about, what I like to talk about after the origin story is tell me if you could think about it, who first taught you about love?
Hmm. Well, that's kind of easy. My parents, my
Mm-hmm.
mother and father,
Mm-hmm.
Calvin and Brenda. That's where I first learned about love.
Mm-hmm.
And they are one of my greatest examples outside of the Lord of love. So
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with both my parents in a home. They were married, and they had a traditional type setup. My dad was a good dad, provider, good husband. My mom worked too outside of the home, cleaning houses, but they raised us in church. I grew up in a Kojic church my whole entire life. My parents were saved.
Time out. Time out. Which church?
Pillar of Truth Church of God in Christ on 16th and Pulaski.
Okay, so you were still over. You were still southwest
Well, yeah, that was the
over there.
west. Well, to us, that was the west side. 16th and Pulaski was the
Yeah,
west side.
right. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, so that's what, fifth jurisdiction.
No, we were in Southern Illinois jurisdiction.
Okay, I grew up
So
in.
Bishop J.I. Cobb was our bishop when we were growing up.
Okay,
And then, you know, the Brown sisters, their
yeah.
father, yeah. So
Okay,
that's
I grew up in first jurisdiction.
okay. Like
So
Greater
that's
Holy Temple. I think Greater Holy Temple was like first jurisdiction, right?
no St. Paul.
St. Paul. Okay.
St. Paul. This is Bishop Ford Church. Good evening to everybody. Jamie, good to see you. Fred, my brother Fred Wilson, good to see you. Ash, good to see you all.
Hello.
Thanks for you all chiming in. Yeah, so church. So your parents, right? So let me ask you this. Was it ever a conversation about love? Or was it more you learned what you learned through just observing?
Never a conversation. And in fact, my parents weren't real affectionate in front of
Mhm,
us towards us. So I mean, we knew they loved each other because my mom respected my dad, my dad respected my mom. They took care of us, but my parents were never the touchy feely type. Like we never saw our parents kiss. I never saw
mhm,
my parents kiss. I never saw my daddy give my mom a little pat or nothing. So we
mhm,
never saw that, but it never made me feel like they didn't love each other.
mhm,
My dad is the one who enforced that we respect my mom, we respect each other. My mom made sure we respect my dad, but it wasn't a touchy feely household, and they didn't talk about. They talked about love, like us loving each other, like being a family, being close, remaining
mhm,
close, but never a romantic type love ever.
mhm. So where did you get your linguistics for love? Like where did you get your definition from? Because if they don't define it for you, then we observe and then we come up with words. I know for me, it was like in my formative years, 12, 13, 14, 15, it might have been a DeBarge song. Like it may have been Luther, right? That you're finding through these love songs words to kind of describe, oh, okay, well, this must be what love is. Like,
Right.
how did that happen for you?
Well, in my formative years, so in junior high, like it started happening probably right then, like seventh, eighth grade, going into high school. It definitely was music, and it would have been Jodeci for me. So, I mean, if you were talking like Jodeci, if you were doing what Jodeci said do, I'm like, okay, this is the one for me.
You that girl. You're
Yeah, I'm that girl.
Jodeci girl instead of a Boys to Men girl.
I'm the Jodeci girl instead of the boy. That's where I made my wrong decisions at, right then and there. It started with Jodeci for me. um, so yeah,
Got
Jodeci.
it. Yeah.
That's that. So with music, that was it, and I would definitely say, really, again, like the neighborhood I grew up in, just like the school I went to, we all went to school together. We were part of this community, and we all went to the same school in this community. And just kind of like the culture that was built kind of gave me my linguistics for what love was or what it
Mhm.
should be. And it pretty much followed that Jodeci model too. So, yeah, I would say that. I would say that.
Okay. No, no, no. I get it. I totally understand. What kind of girl that was into Jodeci? Like,
You gonna say what kind of girl was into
No, no,
Jodeci?
I get it. Hey, I love Jodeci just a
But
bit.
Jodeci was saying some real love stuff at one point. I mean, they was a little rough around the edges, but they was saying they was saying some real love stuff.
I'm with you. I love Jodeci. I love, yeah. So I totally get it. Um, I would like to think I balance myself between Boys Two Men and Jodeci. That, you know,
I love Boys to
I
Men
get no,
too.
I know you. I get it. I totally get it. Let me ask you this. We both have a similar religious background, and
Hmm.
I'm interested in ways in which our parents did not talk about love. They showed love. The church was right there to give us all kinds of ideas about love. And sometimes that was helpful, and sometimes perhaps that was harmful.
Hmm.
How did that help you shape your ideas about love?
My faith. How did my faith help
Mhm.
me?
And your
Um,
religious upbringing.
and my religious upbringing. Okay,
Yeah.
so so I'll separate the two. My faith has always um, been the foundation of me believing in true love, in real love. Because one thing I did know and see with my mother and father is that their faith kept them committed to each other when it probably was really rough for them. Just two people coming together, being married,
Mhm.
raising a family, going through the different stages of life. And so I knew that um, faith in God and faith in His Word will keep you committed to the will of God, which I mean, I learned that kind of later in life. Like, there's a difference, when you choose to love someone and if this is the will of God or you believe this is the will of God. So you're committed to the will of God first
Mhm.
instead of the roller coaster that you can go through from time to time. Now, with religion, because I grew up in a sanctified church, I grew up in a Catholic church, and we were a strict church. And so I actually kind of grew up thinking, it was one or the other. Like, I'm gonna be saved or I'm gonna have a boyfriend, because I can't be saved and have a boyfriend, or he got to be a boyfriend like that's in my church, and that wasn't happening. So I never had a church boyfriend. So I
Mhm.
always had boyfriends, but I never had a church boyfriend.
Mhm.
And everybody else had like a church boyfriend, and I never had
Mhm.
a church boyfriend. And so with religion, I always felt like, well, I gotta choose. Do I want to have fun, and do I want to like have a boyfriend and date this person, or am I gonna do what I kind of want to do in my heart, which is walk with the Lord? But I mean, in my formative years, I thought it was either or, until my walk became more personal, until I became an adult and
Mhm.
I began to let, the Spirit of God and the Word kind of teach me about relationships and how my relationship with somebody else is an extension of my relationship with the Lord. And I absolutely can date and still be saved.
Mhm. Mhm. How does so you had a couple of influences, like your dad was there in the home with you,
Hmm.
and then I'm sure your pastor was a male.
Hmm.
You love Jodeci. Um, you you want a boyfriend. I'm interested in, like, what was early love for you like when you finally 15, 16, and start liking boys, or had your first love, your first boyfriend. um I'm interested in how all of those influences come to play, and how you understood men, maybe even how you understood yourself and understood what love should look like
Hmm.
between two people.
Well, again, at that age, I definitely had a type by that time. Like 14, 15, 16, I had a type. I've always had a big personality.
Hmm.
So I always knew I wanted to be with someone who could probably match my personality, even though I always like guys who were a little bit more reserved than me. I didn't want you to be as boisterous as me, but um, I needed you to be able to like handle who I was and what I brought to the table. I will say, back in those days, I was kind of more into like reputation, the reputation of the person. I kind of like stern, like serious type guys.
Hmm.
I don't know. People think I'm funny, but I don't think I'm a jokester. Like I'm not really. Like I'm very serious. I'm very like about business. I'm very down to earth. So in the day to day things, like I always felt like I needed somebody very serious, very stern. Sometimes that didn't work out well for me.
Hmm.
But that's what I was attracted to. My dad was a he's lighthearted, very kind, very lighthearted. But like I said, in the home, they weren't affectionate towards each other. It was go to work, pay these bills, do what I got to do for y'all for school, go to church, and that was that.
Hmm.
So yes, I did like kind of guys who had, you know, a big reputation,
Hmm.
and just kind of stern, kind of serious type dudes.
So with that, um, I'm interested in how we fall in love, right? What what happens between two people that allows a safe space for feelings to be expressed? Um, is it just like an inner kind of knowing that, oh, I'm attached to this person and I feel great affection for them? Is it something that is expressed between you all? Isn't it? I don't, and I hate love language because I think there are more than five love languages. But
Mhm.
I understand, like, oh well, he did something for me, or he said something for me, or he touched me
Mhm.
in a special way, and that is how we connected at that time. Really, very early on. What was that mechanism for you? And do you think that's changed since you got older?
I actually think, well, speaking, let me reference the love languages first.
Hmm.
So my primary, when dealing with that area, my primary love language is acts of service. And I've always been like that. And that's probably really the example I get from my father. My father showed love by doing for us and making sure we were good and my mom was good and our family was good in general. I am still like that. And so I've always liked someone who takes the initiative. And like, you ain't got to talk to me about it like a million times. Like, if you say you're going to do it, I want you to do it. And if it's something that you don't even have to say it. Like, I like if you see that you can contribute something or do something that would take the load off of me. To me, that makes my heart smile because it's like you're thinking about me. I like thoughtfulness. And so
Hmm.
acts of service to me is a way of being thoughtful. It's, I see you're doing this, so let me help you with that. And I've always interpreted that as special. I've always interpreted that as love. And so I always used to want like this great chemistry. Like I had to have a chemistry with a person. I don't care how they looked and what they had. If I didn't have like that chemistry, then it was like a no-go for me. Now, when in terms of falling in love, I really do think about purpose because
Hmm.
I know that feelings change, feelings go up and down, but and our purpose does grow and evolve. But I would like to connect with someone where we have complementary purposes. And so I think that when I speak with someone, oh, and I love a communicator.
Hmm.
So like a person who just gets in there and tries to lift the load where you two just work together to help each other, and someone who can articulate and communicate their feelings really well, that kind of helps open my heart up to love.
Got you. So you saying if he wore some Carl Kanai and some Timberlands and and, and a leather jacket in the desert, then and bought you some bamboo earrings and a
No.
herringbone chain. That's it. He had you, huh?
Because I know you ain't doing that for them over there. I know you ain't doing that for them over there, but you're doing it for me.
Right, right. I get it. I see it. I can see that.
Yeah.
It's. I think that us falling in love is somewhat natural. Um,
Hmm.
I think that our hearts, our souls, our spirits always seek to connect
Hmm.
um, with someone else to make life feel a little less lonely, right?
Hmm.
Nearness in our love is important. What they didn't talk to us about, whether that's in our religious upbringing or whether that's in our homes, is how do we deal with it when it doesn't work out, right?
Mhm,
Um, like we don't always. Nobody ever said you don't always get to keep everybody and everything that you love.
mhm.
Um, and I remember some devastating breakups when I was a when I was a teenager. It was all messy and it is awkward because you don't know what you're doing.
Mhm.
Um, and it's hard to wrap your mind around this idea. Well, we've talked every day, we communicated every day,
Right.
and all of a sudden, like we don't. Um, and so learning how to have a breakup,
Mhm.
learning how to heal and to
Mhm.
go on after that is something that wasn't talked about too. What was your first breakup like, and what did it teach you about love?
Oh wow. um, first breakup, like first like kid formative breakup,
Sure, yeah, yeah.
or
We'll get there and then we'll push on to a little
uh,
later
I
breakups.
mean, it was just I don't know, abrupt. It was just like, okay, I ain't doing this no more. Like it was just like I'm not doing this, and I didn't know how to deal with it. And I actually formed, like in my formative years, I actually formed this defensive mechanism where if it was going to be done, okay, just done. I'm cutting it. I don't want anything, I'm just going to walk away. I don't want anything to do with it. And I'll just keep walking from this until I don't have any feeling or emotion about it anymore.
Mhm,
And so I developed that like with my first breakup, like real breakup that kind of like hurt me. And then my second and third breakup, like in my teenage years, it was the same thing. It was like I could have had a conversation with these people. Maybe they could have had a conversation with me, but I chose that once, whatever that moment was that we said we weren't going to do it or it wasn't going to work, then I would just walk clean away.
mhm,
And because I never liked that feeling, I developed, if I chose to be in a relationship with someone, I wouldn't jump in a relationship with someone really quickly, even if I dated them. I wouldn't get in a relationship with them. But once I was in a relationship with them, I would like do everything to kind of make it work because I hate change. And so it's like we took all this time to get here. Now that we're here, I
mhm,
just like consistency. So I
mhm,
would rather just stay in it and try to make it work because I know that once I walk away from it, I'm never coming back. Like that's it. Like I will try and try and try and try, but then when I make up my mind that I'm walking away from it, then away from it. And so I kind of developed. It took some really close friends to point this out to me because I didn't realize this. If I liked someone and I saw that I really liked them and there was potential for us to be together, that potential brings the potential for them to hurt your feelings. Like I could be mad at somebody, I can work through being mad, I can work through being angry, but if you're close enough to me to hurt my feelings, that I didn't really like that. And so I started doing things. If I liked someone and I felt like they had the potential to hurt me, then I would just kind of like look for something and I would cut it off. And I would like, okay, yeah, no, that's not gonna work. Yeah,
mhm,
that's not what I'm looking for.
mhm.
And it took two of my best friends to kind of tell me, sis, you like this person. And like things happen. And because they have the potential to hurt you because you kind of like them and you care about them now, you keep walking off. Like when you start caring or you feel like they can hurt you, you're walking off. And so that's something I had to deal with.
Yeah, and I don't put all of this on anybody. I think we were raised the way we were raised, right? But I think looking back over our shoulder, my shoulder at least, is that the church talked to us about everything as young people, about our bodies, right? What not to
Mm-hmm.
do with our bodies and
Mm-hmm.
flee this, and you're going to hell for that.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't tell us what to do with our hearts,
Yeah.
right? And they
Yeah.
didn't tell us, well, how do you connect with somebody, and what does love look like between a man and a woman, and then what do you do? after you don't get to keep it and it kind of works out,
Hmm.
doesn't work out the way you want to. And for you and for me, is love also means vulnerability,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
we don't know how to be vulnerable. It is very scary
Yeah.
because to love someone, you're giving them the power to potentially hurt you.
Exactly.
You hope they wouldn't. Like, I
Right.
really wish you would not
Right.
do this. And I remember, very early on in my life having that same thing when I knew I was with someone and I could tell that I could really get attached to you,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it would be very difficult for me to 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 pull out of it. Once I was in it,
Right.
I would just run like, oh,
Right.
no, 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 I'm not,
Right.
absolutely, I'm not doing this. I remember, and I wrote about this, is like one day I went on a date um with a young woman, and I walked her to the door, and it was like a scene in a movie. She walked up to the door, unlocked the door, and then she turned around to hug me. Before she hugged me, she like looked up at me, and I could see everything in her eyes, like all of her expectations and all of her wants,
Wow.
and all that I thought I in that moment, like I could connect with her. And so I hugged her, went to my car, deleted her phone number out of my phone. I was like, absolutely not, not going. she trying to work that hoochie on me. I am not. I can't do it.
Oh,
I
no,
was
you did.
Yeah, it was. This was before therapy, though. So I mean, in my defense, I was, a little unevolved then, but I totally felt all of that vulnerability in that moment. I was
Mm.
like, yeah, no, 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 no. And so I think as we get older, I think we become more comfortable with love is this and that, right? It is
Hmm.
not just pleasure.
Right.
It is not just
Right.
joy. It is pain. It is vulnerability.
Exactly.
And that can feel scary and intimidating sometimes. How did you later on as adult navigate that space, like learning how not to run, right? But to stay and be in it and feel all the joy and the pain of it. When did that happen for you?
I think when I realized what that communication was one of the qualities and one of the main characteristics that I wanted in a partner, that I wanted in a mate, it made me realize that if I want that from a mate, and I'm a great communicator, I can't shut down when things get hard and get rough. And so if I'm going to take the good with the bad, the pain with the pleasure, this whole thing called love, which I definitely believe commitment and consistency is such a big part of that. If you're going to get through all of that, and how I learned to deal with that is you got to have some hard conversations. You got to be willing to listen to some hard conversations, and you got to be willing to give some hard conversation. So, point an example with what you said about like just ghosting. Basically, you ghosted the young lady.
Long before we had a term for it.
Oh
I
yeah, long,
absolutely
long,
did.
long before there was a
Yeah,
time for it.
yeah.
So, you ghosted the young lady, but did you ever? So this is what I say. If I meet someone whose expectations aren't what I can't give them, I want to communicate that to them. I want to, if I can, I heard Mike Todd say this, leave them with a blessing. Hey, this is not what I'm looking for, or what I'm looking for, you ain't giving it. And so, can you communicate that? Like, if you would have told that young lady, I can see what you want. I can see all that you want, and I'm not there. I feel like there's so much more of a blessing in that.
Yeah,
that can stop a person from having
sure
so much
can.
heartache. And
Absolutely.
you know, so the communication thing helps me deal with it because I can deal with truth and I can deal with I hate lies. I hate liars.
Mhm.
But I want the truth. Like I want the call, and I want it like lay it out. I am such
Right.
a person like it's black and white. I have no in between. Like lay it out on the line because what I will do at the end of the day is respect you.
Hmm.
And respect to me is like the epitome of love when you
I get
respect
it.
someone.
Yeah. Again, in my defense, this is no, this is happening in a very, very dark place. I had just been divorced. I don't think I was divorced. I was divorced maybe a year or what
Okay.
have you. So that I was fresh. That was like one big fresh wound, open wound at that time, and it was before I started therapy. And I think you have to do work on yourself to be able to stay in the room and be courageous enough, not just to be in a conversation where somebody is talking to you, but for you to say what you need to say without
Exactly.
fear of them running away from you
Yeah.
or penalizing you
Yeah.
for how you feel. Like, and that's a skill that as I've gotten older, I realize that everybody doesn't have it. I'm gonna push back at you for a minute because you say you're a great communicator. I think all women would say they're great communicators. I would dare say all women are not great
No, they're
communicators.
not.
Yeah,
They're not. No, I
but
don't. I
they'll
don't.
say the running line is women are great communicators and men don't communicate. I know plenty of women who talk a lot.
Yeah. No.
That is
I,
not communicating.
yeah, I don't buy into that. I've ran into some men who communicate very well, and they challenge me to
Mhm,
step up to the
mhm,
plate. Like I like in these past years, I really have met, but I think that comes from men who are more evolved.
mhm.
Men who like something you said about being courageous, and I think that's what I do like about a great communicator because you have to have courage, feel, and articulate what you see and to actually do it. So the ability to do it and then the action of actually doing it. So yes, it's a lot of people that talk, but at the end of the conversation, I still don't understand you, and I still don't understand what's going on. It's something different when someone can speak and you can feel and you can understand what they're saying
Mhm.
because they can even say it maybe on a level you need to say it on so that you can comprehend what's going on.
You know, a lot of, and I'm divorced, so a lot of what I remember about my marriage, and this was 20 something years ago, was there was a lot of arguing and there was a lot of words being thrown at each other back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
What I've learned since then, um, in my relationships, you know, whether they're romantic or whether they were just talking with my brothers or my friends,
Mm-hmm.
is a big part of communication for me is to try to hear from someone else's viewpoint,
Mm-hmm.
right? That I that communication has to have empathy, where it's not
Mm-hmm.
about me telling you what I want to tell you, but it's me listening and listening, putting myself in your shoes,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I think when you have that empathy, I think when you understand, it could give you context.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If I don't understand you, you can say all the words you want to say, and you may
Mm-hmm.
even be right, but that doesn't mean I understand
That
you, and
is so true.
that doesn't mean I
Now
even
this that now that's truth, the Lord, and
yeah.
that is now that's truth, the Lord, and wow, that's something I was just saying too. You know, which I feel is a big, which I feel is like been one of the biggest barriers in dating with me is that do you really understand me? You know, and not to say this, and I'm saying this in a way like I'm being truthful, like I'm very complex. You know, I
No,
am,
get out.
you know, I'm safe. I'm a little
Mhm.
bougie. I'm a little ratchet. I'm a little hood. You know, I got a whole little,
Right, right, right,
a
right,
lot of little components going to me,
right.
but I have like a really like just like emotional depth to me
Mhm.
that I feel like men are sometimes scared to go past this surface part of what made whatever initially attracted them to me. So they like that part and they deal with that part. But the real me, do you understand? Do you understand why I do this? And do you
Mhm.
understand why I think that way? And do you understand why, you know, this or that may be a trigger for me or not? And it's almost like communication can't happen because two people don't understand each other or they're not willing to understand each other. So how can you really move? Yeah, how really can you communicate if the person doesn't even understand you?
Yeah, I think that part of our affection for one another has to be number one, you're teaching me how to love you, right? And so that's not just what you do, it is what you say to me. Like it's amazing to me, like people think in their relationships like somebody's read the manual. And
Right.
you should just know
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
what happened to me when I was 6 years old at
Yeah.
McDonald's and why that's triggering for me. Well, no, I don't know.
Yeah.
And you have to be willing to talk to me
Mhm.
about it, right?
Mhm.
Because if I care for you and this is your trigger, if this is what causes you to have flashbacks, if this is what causes you not to be all that you can be, then if I care about you, I don't want to put you in that position,
Exactly. I
right?
agree.
And so to me, I think there's a lot of assumptions between men and women that, oh, by osmosis or some kind of way, I'm just supposed to know. And then if I hurt your feelings when I'm not there by what I say, what I don't say,
Mhm.
what I do, what I don't do,
Mhm.
I don't know why you're feeling. I don't know why this
Mhm.
is a big deal for you because you
Mhm.
haven't articulated to me what that is. On the flip side of that, men don't give enough, right? I think that women expect too much sometimes, and I think on the other end, men don't expect enough,
Mm.
right? That we don't. You demand of us to be emotionally present,
Mhm.
right? You want us to come into the space and you can unveil how you feel and you want us to be present. Men don't demand that of the women in their life,
Mm.
right? We
Mm.
don't demand that you not hurt my feelings. Like you just can't say whatever you want to say to me and I'm just supposed to absorb it because I'm a man, right? Like
Mhm.
I am human, right?
Mhm.
My feelings actually do get hurt and I would like for you not to do that,
Mm.
right? But we don't put that responsibility on you like you put that on us. And
Mm.
so we just swallow it. And so when a man leaves, it's not over one thing, it's an accumulation of
Mhm.
some things that we probably should have talked about. And perhaps if we talked about it, we could have fixed it, but we didn't. You
Right.
just kept doing it. And then one day I'm out. And I think again, that is in the way we fail each other.
I agree.
Um, Let me ask you this because you're a parent, and um, I observe that parenthood changes. Um, and I probably have no right to say this, but maybe I do. I think there's some women who have maternal instincts, right, and get into motherhood, and oh, I love this, and this is great, and it's natural. And then there's some women who struggle with it. That
Mhm.
I mean, they had the baby, but they don't really want to be
Mhm.
a mother, and that's a specific type of love.
Mhm.
Added on to all the other how you understood love up until then, how did the love of mother child add to your linguistics or your definition of love?
One of the biggest ways it added to my definition of love when I had my children, I experienced the most selfless love I've ever experienced in my life.
Mhm.
And so I thought there was no greater love than the love I had for my parents. My mother and father, that's it. They are my loves. I would do anything for them. And my two brothers, my siblings. But when I had my children, it's a different type of like that love of I will give all of myself. I for them. Like I like everything is for them. And so when it comes to dating or being in a relationship, now that I have that type of experience of love, I almost had an expectation of, yes, this is like a real rounded love. Like when it may not be convenient for you. Everything I do for my kids is not convenient. I got to work my schedule around their schedule. I'm the one paying the bills, but they the ones who calling the shots with all these like activities they're in, and so I work my schedule around their schedule. And when you start doing that and you start sacrificing yourself for the better of someone else, you expect that too when someone comes in, and so you can I absolutely have that expectation. And I know that it really came from me being a mother. And so I had someone tell me one time, like they were tired or something. And I couldn't understand that because I'm like, I've been tired for 16 years and I keep going. I've been tired ever since I had my first daughter. But matter of fact, everything I do with tired. So I couldn't fathom a person not doing something because you're tired. Not like you're just a little tired. And I'm like, I'm tired every day, really, and I expected something, and this person's life was set up different than mine. And it kind of just made me realize, when people who have a different experience than you, then you probably have different expectations of each other as well. And so that's actually a very good question because giving to my children and doing things when I don't want to do them and giving things when I don't have them to give, it's like I want that back from somebody else. I want that type of love from somebody else.
And do you think that's possible?
I think it's possible in the sense of you can't expect your mate to give you what they would give a child or what you would give a child because those roles and what you're given are different. But I do think it's very possible for people to love and care about each other enough that don't just love me when it's convenient. And I'm not just going to love you when it's convenient. And I'm going to do things. I think you just said something. If I know something is a trigger for you, if I care for you, I'm not going to continually put you in a triggering situation. And so I'm going to do things that'll be, more selfless in order so that you can be in a better place. Like it's not, I'm not gaining anything from hurting you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't want to be in that type of position. And you shouldn't be gaining anything from hurting me.
Sure. Um, I have a question that I'm not going to forget, but there's a couple of questions. You all who are online, I want you to know I appreciate it. I'm not ignoring you at all. But I think Robert raises a good question, and then we'll move on.
Mhm.
He says, should communication come before commitment? I believe that's what that says, Robert. Um,
Mm.
what do you think about that?
I definitely think communication should come before commitment. Because if you commit without communication, you're going to spend the rest of the relationship trying to get someone to communicate or trying to understand how you communicate.
Hmm.
So I think that it's important. I think it should be part of the like gathering data. Like when you're dating, you're gathering data, you're gathering
Sure.
info. And I, I I mean, if someone communicates in a way that is a turn on to you, a turn off to you, compatible with you, complimentary to you, if you truly are dating them. As you go along in the dating process, you can see how someone communicates. You can see how they deal with things, and you have to decide: is this something that's good for me, or is this a trigger for me?
Right. I'm always interested in, especially as we get older, um, how much data do we need to gather
You're
before?
not about to be gathering all this data on me before you decide to commit now.
Well, no, and I think it goes both ways, right? It's like, well, how much do I need to know about you for me to make that type of commitment, right? Because if you get into a relationship, sometimes tell me something about you I don't know. Well, you don't know everything about
Right.
me. Like we could be here from now till
Exactly.
Timbuktu trying to explain everything about me, I think the question after that is, well, how much do you need to know? before you decide, okay, this person isn't a serial killer, perhaps, and
Well, I don't know if it's how much you need to know or if it's
Mhm,
more of a question. Have you learned how, like, I don't think a person needs to know everything about you before they commit, because that's impossible. And you could be together for years and years and years before a person commits. But this person's way of communicating and, this person's heart and who they are, is this something that I think that no matter what we learn about each other in the future, we can work through it because of what I see and know about them right now. Like, I see enough, I know enough, I know that they are whatever a person is looking for. I can tell they're a loyal person, I can tell they're a loving person, I can tell they're a God-fearing person. Do you see enough of the qualities and the characteristics you need to say, okay, I may not know everything about them, but I know enough that I feel comfortable going through situations with them, learning more about them with what they've showed me so far. And I don't think it takes a lifetime for that to happen.
sure. No, I think maybe one of the hiccups in our ways we um, engage one another, especially when we're dating, is that we're so busy talking that we're not observing,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think you can learn a lot about somebody by observing and paying attention to them. Like, I remember I went out to dinner with someone. It was first or second date, and I watched how she treated. We went to a restaurant, and I watched how she treated the waiter.
Mm-hmm.
Right, um, and I think that's Alexa. Alexa, be quiet.
I
It's
don't
just,
like the way you just treated Alexa. I
well,
just observed.
Alexa's rude. But anyway, um, we went to a restaurant and I watched how she was just kind of rude
Mm-hmm.
to the waiter, and I was like, I think it says a lot about who we are
Mm-hmm.
by how we treat people who serve us, um, how we treat people around us, um, and so I think to me that spoke to me something about who she was.
Absolutely.
In the same way, I think that there are things that we do observe that sometimes we're so infatuated, maybe with what we see or this
Mm-hmm.
idea of what
Mm-hmm.
this could be, that we don't honestly look at what we actually are observing,
Ex-
right? Like, we'll look past some horrible traits in
mm,
somebody because they're
that's true.
kind, or because they got status or whatever it is, that attracts us. And so I'm wondering for you, when was that point? Because I think it turns for us as adults. You could be all enamored very young with her shape and her lips and all of that other kind of stuff, only to realize as you get older, she could be gorgeous, but be an absolutely horrible person. In the
Mm-hmm.
same way, I'm sure, you could find somebody attractive and they could
Mm-hmm.
have this, that, and the other, but they're like, it's a horrible person. Like, I would rather be with somebody who's like kind.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
I would rather be with somebody who's just nice than with somebody who has all of this exterior stuff. When was that turning point for you in your relationships where you started to evaluate attractiveness, beauty differently than when you were younger?
I think probably the biggest turning point is when I had kids.
Mhm,
And it brought out this desire in me, um, that, I mean, maybe I wanted it, but I just didn't really pay attention to it. That I like somebody that's kind to me. I really like a person who's kind and beyond nice, because nice can be a formality, but kindness comes from a place of benevolence. It's
mhm,
a um, extra step that actually comes from, an ethical place or either a loving place. And so I started realizing that I if someone's not kind to me, I don't want to be bothered with that. Like, if you can say you like me, you can say you're interested in me, but if you're just like super mean, super dismissive, that does nothing for me. It actually tears me down, and I don't care how fine you are. What do I want to be tore down for? Just to look at you being fine. And I realize, it's a lot of fine people out here in the world. So you're gonna have to come better than being fine. But everybody's not kind. Everybody's not self-sacrificing. Everybody's, not trying to be a poor. They're trying to be poured into, but they're not trying to be a poor. So just pouring into my kids and realizing that I'm a nurturer by nature, and I would like to be poured back into with some of that same love and kindness that started becoming a priority.
Yeah, and I think for me, and I think I agree with you, is that as we get older, we become more affectionate. We become more attached to people, to places, to things that feed us,
Mm, true.
right? Like I'll come back to you if there's something for me here to eat off of. And that's
Mm-hmm.
my soul, that's my spirit. That means you're smart and I learned something from you. Your perspective about life is very different from mine. And I find that interesting. Like it feeds you in some ways. And so being fine and all of that aesthetic becomes lessened
Mm-hmm.
as you get older when you want peace at home, right? Or you
Exactly.
want to be able to go to bed and get some rest at night.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about being a mother, and you talked about, and I know we'll talk later about what you do and all the like. But where does self care come in to that, and how do you express love to yourself while you're giving to everybody and in all these spaces?
So I definitely had to learn that was an area I had to be intentional about, because again, I'm a giver and I just do it with ease, and I'm a fixer. So if somebody has a problem, I'm always running to it. I want to fix, I want to encourage. My strongest gift is exhortation. So I love to encourage and to exhort people and to help them fix whatever they have going on. And when I started coming like really depleted, like I started getting irritated, I started realizing like you're not going to be any good for anyone else. You're not going to fix anything for anyone else until you take care of yourself. And taking care of myself is different from what other, like some people love massages and stuff. I don't care for them. I like to travel. I like to go out to eat, and I like to be with my friends. And so these are things where I feel I get replenished, and I mean just like physical, emotional replenishment. I get replenished spiritually through the word. But I'm saying like when I just like something that Tiffany wants to do, Tiffany likes experiences. So I love trying new experiences, and I have worked that into my schedule where I'm trying a different experience. If I can't do it every week, I'm gonna do it every 2 weeks, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to make sure that it happens. I'm a foodie, and I love travel, and so
Mhm.
I kind of like went through this whole thing when the pandemic came because I could not travel, I could not eat, and I was like, oh God, I gotta like find something else, to really be doing it. Me and my friends, we made it work, but that's my thing. That's my self care thing. I love to journal, making sure I'm not so busy that I don't journal at the end of the night, or I don't, get to journal in the morning time. Like I write like that is, I release everything with writing. If I do nothing else, I love to write and I love to read. So reading, writing, eating, and traveling, I have to work that into my self care schedule at some point.
Mhm.
And I'm very intentional about it, and I do it.
That's wonderful. Um, I think as we get older, what we should do is learn how to love ourselves.
Yeah,
Um, and to not just say that, but to express it,
yeah,
like to have acts of kindness and service for ourselves.
yeah.
Um, and I think that's important because if we don't, then when we're with someone, they don't know how to love us because we don't know how
Hmm.
to love us. Um, as you've gotten older, as we've gotten older. Um, how do you deal with breakups? Are one thing. Um, Death in and of itself is another, right? I lost my well, I didn't lose them. My grandmother transitioned right before my 40th. I think I was 37, and my dad passed at 39.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of really devastating kind of period for me. And one of the things like I really reflected on is that for all of our upbringing in church and all the like, we really didn't talk about death a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we don't talk about divorce. And in my case, what I experienced, divorce is a type of death,
Mm-hmm.
and it has its own grieving component to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to understand that no, death is a part of life, right? And our lives are always in transition
Mm-hmm.
from generation to generation, and it's natural. How have you dealt with not just death of people we love, but sometimes friends, people we thought we're gonna be friends forever, and then people change. I changed, they change, and we're not as close as we used to be. Or you move on from a job, transition to another space, and leave those friends there. How have you dealt with that?
Well, I'll say I come from two big families, and so with I've experienced, death of loved ones ever since I was a kid. Just because we have a
Mhm,
big family and people have always passed on. I still have my parents and my two brothers, so I've never lost a parent. I've never lost a sibling, but
mhm,
I've lost close aunties, uncles, all of my grandparents. Are deceased, and I've always one for my family that passes that's in the Lord. I've always, to be, my mom has always, that's one thing she's always taught us, even when she leaves, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. You're going to miss me, but life is going to go on because this is how God has set this life up.
mhm,
And so I've dealt with that way. And even with friends, I mean, I've had people I've dated die, and that was hard. That was very hard. Like that probably is one of the hardest things. I went through, and I had a season of like just extreme grief, but I never anywhere thought that my life was going to stop. Like I knew I was going to get past it. Like I always knew that no matter what happened or what disappointment I had, that God had a life for me to continue to live. So I've never been to the point where I was in despair and thought I could not go on because anyone passed.
mhm,
I did have a season where I had to like break away and mourn and grieve in private, depending on the situation and the season in my life. But um, I've dealt probably more, I probably had a really rough time with breakups and maybe friends who I thought were really my friends and us parting ways because I think with death you just know there's nothing you can do. There's no conversation you can have. There's no coming back. With breakups, divorces, friends leaving, they're still there. So you always have to deal with the possibility of what could happen in the future. And sometimes that makes that harder for me.
so how do you heal, right? I've gone through a breakup in my life where it was just like I'm not gonna make it. I'm not. I did not think I was just physically ill. Like
Yeah.
I just couldn't. The grief of it and the sorrow of it was just like overwhelming for me. And as a person who deals with depression,
Mhm.
managing my depression, those lows could be like really, really, really low. Um, how do you deal with gathering yourself? What is that process for you like to kind of um, come back to yourself? Because I think I theorize it like this: is that what makes us love or attach or have great affection for people is when we experience part of ourself with them
Mhm.
that we didn't know was there,
Mhm.
right? That who I am when I am with you enlightened me and was a revelation to me. And when you take that from me, I'm losing part of
Mhm.
myself that perhaps maybe only is activated when we are together, right?
Mhm.
And so it is not just losing the person, it is losing that part of yourself. Whether that was with my grandmother loved me, right?
Mhm.
It's like I'm not gonna find nobody, nobody gonna love me like my grandmother did, or for all of the father figures and yada yada yada. I only had one father who was
Mhm.
gonna love me unconditionally, um, and once that's gone, I don't have that anymore. And it took some time, and it took some conversations, and it took some processing, and it took some crying, and it took some days
Mhm.
for me to kind of get to a healthy place. Not that you don't feel the loss any less, but you just learn how to you get
Right.
stronger, right?
Right.
And you just learn how to live with it where it's not so heavy. What's that process like for you?
Well, Patrick, I'm gonna be honest with you. My healing process is so tedious,
Mhm.
and my friends have talked about it before because I am a person like I am a researcher by nature, an analytical person. I am an overthinker. I am all those things. And so I need to just sit down. I need to get about 10 notebooks out and I need to go through what is the source of this. Like, I'm going to peel back all the layers. I'm not going to deal with the symptoms. And I'm going to follow this role until I get to the source of not only where this went wrong, but what was my part in this? How did I get in a situation like this? What was I desiring? What? Because it's if I don't deal with that, it'll be the same thing with another person, just different body. And so I try to go through what was in me that needed healing. What was in me that was maybe attracted to something toxic or had something toxic or passed the red flag or made me unaware or whatever it is. So I go through this long process. I really do. And I try to think about what what was in me, what was I thinking at that moment, what was this person saying at that moment, what did this person do for me throughout the relationship that I stayed, and what did this person didn't do that maybe I could have started the healing process earlier. So my healing process always is like self-reflective, and then I reflect on the circumstance and I try to like just see, you know, to be honest, because I'm a person of faith, I try to see like what happened or where was I walking that maybe I wasn't even aligned with the word. Sometimes you just ain't following the principles of God, and you just ain't aligned with the word, and that's just the bottom line. Like
Yeah.
it was just eventually going to blow because you're just out of alignment, and sometimes that's just been a thing. And to heal from that, then I need to get in alignment. I need to see why was it. How did I get out of alignment? Why did I choose to be out of alignment? What was it in me, and what was my thought process? And kind of renew my mind and renew my thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally dig that. I think one of the things that helped me in my process, not just in my relationships, but even with death of loved ones and friends, um, is that I think that there's a human instinct that whatever we love, we want to hold on to forever.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like a little kid with my toy. I don't want to share my toy. This is mine.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And as a kid, we can't comprehend. I have to share. I don't. I can't comprehend. Oh, I lost my blanket or the things that bring me comfort. And I realize in life that part of life is a cycle of losing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We don't get to keep everything, everybody. Had a wonderful kindergarten teacher. Couldn't stay with her though, right? Like I had to go, even when I didn't want to. Um, and so then I began to kind of reframe it, right? That I had my dad for 39 years. There's some people who never had a father,
Mm-hmm.
or their father was trash to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a good father who loved me and understood me. And so instead of focusing on the fact that I don't have him anymore, I can be happy because I had him at all.
Mhm.
And I think it's the same way about my love relationships. As I've gotten older, I've had to reframe like, okay, I don't get to keep everybody.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes people make different decisions and they need to go away from you. Sometimes we both made it together, be like,
Mhm.
this is not going to work. Um, and yet, I used to be so pissed and angry when someone went away from me and be horribly sorrowful that they went away. And I think as I gotten older, what helps is that yeah, I wasn't able to keep you forever, but when we were together, we loved each other, we talked to each other, we laughed, we communicated, and it's not a waste of time
Mhm.
because we didn't get forever. Nobody gets forever, right?
Mhm.
Nobody literally gets forever.
Mhm.
We want it for as long as we can have it. But this whole idea of we were together for 3 years and then it didn't work out and we broke up and it was a waste of time. Well, no, it wasn't a waste of time. It's for 3 years you had someone who loved you, cared for you, looked out for you. There was somebody who didn't have that,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
That if you had somebody to argue with, somebody would love somebody to argue, right? Like somebody would love somebody to get on them about their eating habits or whatever it is. And so I think sometimes I think maturity says for us, number one, we don't get to keep everything, but I don't have to despise someone or some job when I don't have them anymore because for a moment when I did have them, well, that job paid me pretty well, or someone was in my life and I was a little less alone. Um, and I think it only becomes harder or hard for us when we spend most of the time pouting that someone left or
Mhm.
I don't have this anymore and I'm angry and I'm supposed to have it.
Yeah.
And we're like spoiled children for the most part, really pouting because I don't have what I used to have.
And I think an element to that too to bring in is sometimes people are more hurt over how the person left really than them leaving. So there's this component of
Pride.
people being able to say, hey, I can deal with not being at that job anymore or not being with that person anymore, or you not wanting to be with me or me not wanting to be with you. But what I really can't deal with is how it happens. So let's use that even in the terms of death. People can accept when older or elderly people just transition on more than a 20-year-old getting shot. It's the way people leave sometimes that makes the sting even harder to
Sure.
deal with and harder to bear. And so I think that we have to learn also how to deal with when things don't happen or turn out the way, not with just us not being together, but when you don't get to have the conversation
Mhm.
before you break up, when you don't get to see them before they pass, when they don't just die of old age, but cancer or
Yeah,
hit by a car or gun violence happens. How do we deal with this thing of how they left? We have to deal with that as well.
sure.
And I think people have a hard time with that. And sometimes people go back not because they really want to be with a person, but because they can't deal with how it ended.
Sure. Absolutely. I totally agree that our ego gets in the way of us seeing what we're really angry about, right?
Yeah.
It's in one context like when my father died, he died of like being a black man. He died of everything. Like it was
Mm.
heart, it was
Mm-hmm.
kidney, it was blood pressure,
Mm-hmm.
it was like everything. And after his death, part of my grief was that I'm angry that you did this to me because I wasn't ready for you to go.
Right.
And if you loved me, you would have took care of yourself better
Yeah.
than you did. And I'm going to a cemetery yelling at somebody who's not here anymore
Wow.
because how could you do this to me? And then you realize, like, okay, I can't make his death about me.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I
That's
have to
true.
kind of move my ego out of the way. His
Yeah.
death did not, it happened in my life, but it wasn't, he didn't do it to me. And
Yeah.
sometimes when people leave our lives, we think they're doing it to us. No,
Yeah, that's true.
I think part of it is like, well, when I move my ego out the way, sometimes when they leave, it has nothing to do with me. Like
Yeah,
it's just
that's
you
true.
and what's going on with you and your capacity, and that is what it is. And so I think a lot of it is about ego. And I'll say this, and we'll wrap up. Like one of the things that really helped me um, was this. I ran into this clip of Maya Angelou talking about love one day, and she says that love doesn't constrain, love doesn't take possession,
Hmm.
love allows people to leave, right?
Hmm.
That's what Michael Jackson said, and she's out of my life. Like love is not possession, right?
Hmm.
Just because I love you doesn't mean I own you. It
Hmm.
doesn't mean that I get to keep you as some commodity in my life. That love sometimes meaning it means allowing who you love to go when they
Yeah.
need to go. Whether that's when they die, and sometimes you bury them, but you haven't let them go. You haven't kind of
Right.
did that process, or you had the conversation with somebody, they had to go, but you're still holding on, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, you haven't let them go because of your ego. And I think part of when I hear all this music about busting the windows in your car and all of this kind of toxic kind of
Hmm.
breakup kind of thing, and it's like, well, really all of that's about is our ego. And I
Yeah.
understand that we're all sensitive, and I understand it does matter how you do it, because sometimes it's disrespectful, sometimes
Hmm.
it's just it is what it is. But when we get to the surface of it, sometimes it's not even about us
Yeah.
in the way.
Actually, a lot of times, I actually think that's the best way to deal with it. You have to let people's issues be their issues. And people will love to make it seem like the way they're acting is because of something you're doing or not doing. But I mean, they probably act like that no matter
Right.
what. And you got to let people own their own mess. And you got to let people go ahead. I think you said something about capacity, or sometimes you just have to realize what people have the capacity for and what they don't have the capacity
Absolutely.
for, and then let them own their own mess. And you just go head on. Like, it's really a matter of humbling yourself and saying you can have it. If that
Absolutely.
makes you feel good to leave that type of way or do that, then you can have it. But it has nothing to do with me, and just keep going on.
Yeah, you're not gonna gaslight me to make it seem like I'm like it's my fault. Like I'm
I'm
feeling
telling
you.
you, the
That's what
gaslighting
we're
be
not gonna do.
real. The gaslighting is so real.
We're not gonna do that. No, we absolutely not gonna do that. So if you need to go ahead. But you ain't gonna put that on me. I'm gonna go to
You ain't
bed.
gonna put it on me.
I'm gonna go to bed. Do you hear me? I'm gonna go to sleep.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. That's good.
so so I'll let you go. I want you to tell us a little bit about your work and what you're doing right now. But before you do that, like I got 5 quick questions. Like it's a lightning round. So
Okay, okay.
you good. I know you good. You can handle it.
I can handle it. I can
Okay.
handle it. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
All right. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. Um, do you believe in love at first sight?
Yes.
Okay. Um, what do you believe about love?
I believe that love is a decision and not just a feeling.
Okay. What do you know about love now that you didn't know then?
That you have to be just as committed to the relationship as you are to liking the person.
That's good. Um, what makes a good lover?
Someone who understands you. And when they
Mhm.
don't, they do their best to try to understand you.
Okay. Last one. Where do you find joy?
This is so cliche, but I'm going to say it
I
because
don't want to hear nothing about the presence of the Lord. So,
no,
okay,
no.
all right.
I mean,
I
no,
believe that too.
that's a
That's
given.
fine. I know you saved, so we got
Right.
that. Right,
No,
I
that's a
got it.
given.
Okay,
It's in family time with my kids.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. That's great. Well, thank you for this. This has been
Thank
awesome.
you. Thank you.
I want everybody to know the work that you do, the public work that you do, and what you're passionate about. I've observed a couple of it, and I want you to share what you do, and then where could we find you and kind of connect with you.
Absolutely. So I host a social media talk show right now that's transitioning into a podcast. Also, it's called Tip Tuesday. My name is Tiffany. My nickname is Tip. And so hence we have Tip Tuesday. We air every other Tuesday on Facebook and on Instagram. The platform is founded on knowing and following your purpose. And so I mentioned earlier in the interview, like my gift, my God given gift is exhortation. I've been like this my whole life where I want to support people and encourage people to find their purpose and to follow it and to fulfill it. So we support Black businesses. We promote cultural progression within the tribe. So I am for the people. Anybody who's ever seen me, I am for our tribe and for, just promoting and getting out there, not just the bad things that get thrown out about us, but just all of the good things that are happening within all of our communities. And then, like I said, with purpose. So you can catch us on Facebook. You can catch us on Instagram soon. Probably within the next month, you'll be able to catch us on a lot of different platforms for podcasts. We're having our end of season. We're in season 2 for the Tip Tuesday show. The end of season show is May 29th. That's Memorial Day weekend. It'll be at 3 p.m. We're going live. We have a special guest. We're going to have a concert. It's a childhood friend, so I'm looking forward to that. And then we're going to start our summer season in June. It's going to be totally different from the format we've been having now, where we air every other Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. We will be having probably one big show and one big event per month in the summertime, because as we just said, everybody's outside in the summer. So Tip Tuesday gonna be outside too, on location. So check
Wonderful.
for us.
Wonderful. So your social media handles, where can they connect with you on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook?
I am on Facebook. I am Tiffany Hale on
Mhm.
Facebook, and on Instagram, I am Tip Tuesday 1. And I'll put this information in the comments once we get off the live. But Tiffany Hale on Facebook, Tip Tuesday, the number 1 on Instagram. And
Okay.
I'm not on Twitter because I
Okay.
just got on social media.
I
Y'all.
get
I
it.
can't even do Twitter.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. I get it. But no, thank you for this. I love your work. I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
I'm a big fan. So thank you for taking your time out to come be with us. Thank you to all of you all who's been with us for the past
Yes.
hour or so. All your comments. I didn't get to acknowledge everybody, but I love you all. Thank you all for being a part. And you
And
want
I
to
just want
see?
to thank you. I want to thank you for bringing me on. Like, it seriously was such an honor. I'm like very excited to be here. I was even a little nervous. I'm like,
Don't be.
um,
It was fun. I told you we
yeah,
could.
it was really fun. And I mean, I really respect your perspective, and you have a strong perspective. I've seen a couple different of your opinions when you write about things, but I respect the work that you're doing. I respect your boldness. I respect how courageous you are, and just even where you're going with the podcast, it is motivating and encouraging to me, and even what I'm doing. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. And all of you all, thank you for being
Thanks,
a part of this
everyone.
show. Appreciate it. And so we'll see you next week for another episode of Love Again Podcast. All right. Love you all. Bye bye.
Bye bye.